Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode for the Vibes del Alma podcast. Woo! So, today, as you can see, I have a video and it's a solo cast. So, it's just me. I'm going to be speaking today, and I just realized that I have two different pairs of earrings on. So, if you're watching the video, you get to see that on one side I have an opal earring, and on the other side, I have my High Priestess earring for that I got, and I forgot what the crystals were. So it's kind of funny because I am a Gemini. It is June, and this episode is coming out the day after my birthday, and that's on purpose. That's the reason why I'm doing this episode on my own today, because it's a mini shout out to myself, another solar return, another year on the sun. And it's kind of funny that I accidentally ended up getting different earrings in my ear because there's this woman named Mia Magic who is also a Gemini. She's someone that's very inspiring. And one of the ways that she embodies her Gemini-ness is by wearing different earrings in each ear. So that's kind of funny that I accidentally did that. I literally just realized that I did this. But anyways, another year. So this episode is me speaking about a reflection of this past year, speaking about how things have changed a lot for me and how that would maybe possibly translate to the future of just Vibes and Alma and this podcast in and of itself. And for those of you that are listening, I also want to give some pointers as to what you can do for yourself for your birthday as a way to be, I don't want to say intentional because intentional can mean a lot of different things, right? You can be intentional with your birthday and want to have to spend quality time with your friends and your family. And the way that you would carry that out is going to be different than if you were intentional with your birthday in a different way by wanting to expand your culture and expand your mind and your knowledge. And if that's the case, you might want to take a trip instead, right? So there's different ways that you can do that. And one of the ways that I'm going to provide here is how can you look at your year ahead, right? Like, what is this next year, this next little era, this next chapter of your life going to look like? And if you have heard of your natal chart, then you know that you can definitely freeze the point in time of when you were born. And there's this thing where you can do with your solar return, right? Not just Saturn return readings, but you can do a solar return reading where you can look at that date, time of this current year to see what this year is going to be about, right? So your natal chart is mostly about your life. But when you look at your solar return chart, and if it's for 2024, it'll be your birthday, date of birth, like time of birth, but for the year of 2024 instead of for your birth year. And you'll be able to see the different ways that the planets are going to collaborate or have tension within each other. And that's a different layer that you can put on top of your natal chart to see, okay, so how are these things going to impact my natal chart? How are these things going to impact the blueprint that I was born with, right? So maybe you're born with a square in Saturn. Sorry, you're born with your Saturn in one point in your natal chart, and then you have it over here. So it's perfectly square to your natal Saturn for this astrological like year that you have the solar return. And then that will just let you know that there's going to be a little bit of tension between you and things about discipline, things about, really restraining yourself. And not only that, but you might have to go through some hardships or some obstacles to really shape who you're meant to be, right? So, and this was a very small snippet, and depending on what else is happening in your chart is what could be, giving you a better picture as to what that is. Because maybe, I mean, I don't really want to get too much into astrology because astrology, I feel like, is one of those things that you can learn a lot about, but then you can learn so much about it that then nothing hits, right? Like, it's kind of like if you look at your moon sign. Oh, what does Capricorn, like moon in Capricorn mean? That's my moon sign. I just gave you a little piece of myself there. There's so many things that you can look up about the moon in Capricorn or the moon in Scorpio, moon in Gemini, moon in Aries, moon in whatever, right? And sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. And the reason why it's because when you have a natal chart and you look into astrology, the experience of the moon in whatever sign you have is unique to you. So you can gain knowledge from other sources, and you should, right? And at the same time, that knowledge is only there to complement and help you figure out what that means for you specifically. It's kind of like, you know, when you have a bunch of Oreos, they all look the same and they might all taste the same, but then maybe one piece of Oreo, when you break it apart, it breaks perfectly. But then another piece of Oreo, when you break up the cookie, it like crumbles to the side and it's different. And it's like, even though they're all Oreos, when you break them apart, they might break differently, they might break the same. And the same thing applies with information that you receive for astrology. Sometimes what you find out there is there to fit the Oreo cookies, that when you break them open, they break them perfectly in half. But then maybe you are that Oreo cookie that doesn't break perfectly in half. Maybe you break into like 5 different pieces. So then it doesn't apply the same way. There's a lot of introspection that happens when you're journeying to learn about yourself and get to know yourself, honestly. So a different tool that I love besides just astrology is cards. And this is tarot. This is the Fortuna Tarot deck by Maria Fajardo Reina. She is from London, and you can't see it too well because it reflects, but it's the Fortuna Tarot deck, and it's very beautiful. This is the Opal edition. She has an amethyst and emerald edition, and then she came up with this Opal edition, and I believe it was limited edition, but I hope that she brings it out again for those of you that are looking at this and want this, because it's beautiful. It's pink boarding, it's a beautiful opal looking cover. And the reason why I'm pulling out the cards is because I'm gonna pull out some cards for myself and for you all. So I'm gonna do a separate reading for myself, individually, once it gets closer to my birthday, because I'm recording this episode before my birthday, so I'm gonna do this to myself like later. But this is a message for anybody that is listening to this podcast on June 5th or anywhere after. Honestly, this is a timeless message, right? And I'm just doing this as a reminder for myself and a reminder for everybody listening, because I am a mirror for other people. I do reflect a lot of what's happening within each person. I am someone that is very vibe-y. Like, if you, depending on the vibes that you give me, I can match them somewhat, especially if they're authentic. If they're authentic vibes, I can probably match it, I can probably feel it. And there's several reasons as to why I'm this way. I'm not gonna get into human design. I'm not gonna get further into my astrology chart, but I am a mirror for people. So I do want to share a message for anybody that's listening to this, about how to be more intentional with how we spend our time, right? And maybe as I am reflecting in the past year, and I'm realizing that there's been a lot of different changes, right? The way that we grow is not linear, it's always in spirals. But it's beautiful to see the spirals that I've been brought back into, because I know that I've been able to gain some beautiful and amazing tools along the way around the circle of the spiral, to the point that when I found myself back in previous situations, I had the ability to take a step back, right? I had the ability to reflect. I had the ability to really, really understand, okay, like, what is happening subconsciously? Why am I reacting this way? Why am I feeling this way? And I've been able to be a better person because of it. And that's what life is really all about. We are here to grow, we are here to evolve in whatever way we want to, right? Whether you want to evolve in a physical way and you want to really, really fine tune in your health and take care of your health and just make sure that you are an amazing person when it comes to that. Maybe you want to evolve educationally, intellectually, and you're here to pursue a bunch of degrees, whether it's institutionally accredited or not. Maybe you're here to read a bunch of books. Maybe you're here to share knowledge, right? And maybe the way that you're here to evolve is spiritually. Maybe the way that you're here to evolve is all of the above. Like it's everything, just the unification of mind, body, and spirit, right? So I'm saying that again because this past year, before I get to the message, I have noticed that I have come a lot farther along than I give myself credit for. And the reason why I was able to know that was because I was placed in situations that were very similar to situations I've lived 15, 10, maybe even like 5 years ago. And the way that I reacted then, previously, was not from the groundedness and rootedness that I was able to act now. There are some situations that I could have been a little bit more graceful with, honestly. So I'm curious to see how they would repeat in my life later on, to see if I have fully been able to be grounded in those situations. But I believe that we're here in life to find how we can be more grounded in our existence and ourselves and who we are authentically and holistically, right? So this is just a reminder for you if you want to see like what are things that have happened 5, 10, 15 years ago, whereas now with the tools that you now have under your belt, with the knowledge that you have, the awareness that you have, give yourself that grace and that congratulations for how much better, more gracefully you would be able to react now versus then. And that's growth. That's growth. That's real growth. Because a lot of the times we feel like, oh, the only way that I can grow is if I have more titles. The only way that I can grow is if I have more money. The only way that I can grow is if I get validated. And all of those things are beautiful. All of those things are nice. All of those things make us feel good. But true growth can only come from within. For a plant to be able to grow, it can't rely on someone passing by and saying it's beautiful. It can't rely on someone else's roots or another plant's roots. It can't rely on the abundance of soil that it's, planted in if the soil is nutrient deficient. It can't rely on the soil it's in either if there's no rainfall around its area. The way that it can truly grow is if it continues to spread its roots and it's planted in a beautiful place that's full of nurture, nutrients, water, light. And by having that beautiful environment, right, that is going to impact who we are and how we behave. It allows us to be able to expand our roots deeper, grow our roots, become more rooted in itself, become more grounded in it of itself. And by being more rooted, by being more grounded, that's when it can bloom and grow. That's when it can do that. Not by looking at another flower's roots, not by looking at another flower's beauty, not by comparing itself to another flower, not by a person walking by and saying it's beautiful. No, by making sure that it gives itself the nourishment it needs, by planting itself in a fertile soil that's nurturing and supportive to the growth of the plant. By setting those boundaries, that's how it can grow. So anyways, message for, I've been channeling, card. Messages for how to be more intentional in getting to know yourself, how to be more intentional in the growth of the self, and all of that beautiful stuff. So we have the Three of Swords, the Two of Swords, and the King of Elixirs, which the King of Elixirs is the King of Cups. So this is the Three of Swords in this deck. This is the Two of Swords in this deck. And this is the King of Elixirs in this deck, for those of you that are watching the video instead of the Spotify version. So the Three of Swords is something that gets a lot of like bad rep to an extent. The superficial version of this is heartbreak. Cool. Now, the thing that we don't realize is that the Three of Swords does talk about pain, right? And the Suit of Swords does talk about the brain. But in the Three of Swords is usually depicted with heart that has three swords running through it. It's painful. It is heartbreak, it's grief, it's loss, it's discomfort. And something that I heard an amazing archetypal terrorist say, Mariana Lewis, was that the Three of Swords oftentimes talks about how the heart has an immense space for discomfort, so much more so than our brain can ever have. We can never comprehend what discomfort feels like. We can attempt to understand how difficult something might be. We know that there's things in life that are harder than others. An example would be maybe a woman that is wanting to conceive and give birth, right? You know, before you give birth, you know that it's painful to give birth. You know that it's a process. You know that there's challenges and that there's silver linings and gifts and miracles that come with all of this. But you will never know in your mind the pain that you'll go through until you go through it. And you will never be able to know in your mind how you will cope with that discomfort. Your heart has a bigger capacity to hold space for that discomfort than your mind will ever have. And the Three of Swords is a reminder. Funny enough, at the top of the card has Saturn, and I talked about Saturn talking about, constriction, discomfort, tension, discipline, and we don't understand that the Three of Swords talks about this idea, especially if we're going to look at it for the message on how to be more intentional with the self, that there's things in our life that we're not meant to comprehend. There's things in our life that happen that we're not meant to try to think our way to a better solution. We just have to live through it. There's nothing that's going to make it better. If you're deciding or contemplating on doing something with your life and you're like, oh, it might be hard, oh, it might be difficult, oh, I might not have the time, it might make things a little bit tight in certain ways. That's Saturn, baby. That's Saturn. That's the Three of Hearts. You can give yourself excuses all you want, but at the end of the day, does your heart truly want that? Because if your heart wants that goal, that thing, that experience, I promise you, your heart will have the capacity to sit through whatever restriction, whatever discipline, whatever discomfort, whatever sacrifice, whatever offering. Instead of sacrifice, offering. What are you willing to offer the universe, the soul, a higher power, God, yourself, to receive your heart's desire? That's what the Three of Hearts talks about. Not the Three of Hearts, the Three of Swords with the heart. What are you willing to offer for you to receive your heart's desire? And when you offer something up, you're letting it go. There's going to be loss with that. It's not going to be offering up your time, offering up your resources, offering up your finances, offering up social activities, right? What are you going to offer up to receive your goal? And at the end of the day, with the Three of Swords, yes, it's discomfort that you can't comprehend and you will not be able to. You're not meant to. You're supposed to go through it. You're supposed to feel it. And by sitting with it, feeling it, and letting it pass through you, that's how you'll be able to move on. Not by trying to conceptualize your way through it. Your brain has a function, consciousness. Emotions are not consciousness. Emotions are your bodily subconscious response. You can't control your emotions. You can control consciousness though. And the more conscious you are, usually the more in alignment you are with your subconscious, the more in tune you are with that. I'm here preaching. After you're able to sit with that and offer something up, we have the Two of Swords, which the Two of Swords is really about balance, right? And this is the type of balance that it's not a win-win situation. And we're not even talking about win-wins here. We're talking about this is a tug at your heart. This is something that you can see the good in either direction and the bad in either direction, right? So you have to comprehend the fact that discomfort is a part of life. And the better we are with discomfort, the better we will live. And I'm not saying that you have to suffer. And I'm not saying that you have to go out of your way and be in toxic friendships and whatever. That's not it at all. We don't want toxicity. But stress is a part of life. That's why we have cortisol hormone. There's a reason why we have the hormones that we have in our body. There's a reason why we have the abilities to process emotions the way that we do, because we're going to go through hardship. It's a part of life. And you don't go out of your way looking for it, but to be able to be stronger, you have to build resistance. To build resistance, constriction needs to come in. You need to be able to build that strength in your heart, in your body, your soul, your brain, your mind, right? So with the Two of Swords, it's about really being able to sit down and make the decisions that are going to continue feeding your heart, right? Don't think about other people. You have to make sure that you do what's going to give you peace of mind, peace of heart, peace of soul. And last but not least, we have the King of Elixirs at the end of it all. And the King of Elixirs is the King of Cups. The King of Cups is this archetype of this person that is able to see things logically, is able to think, and they listen to the peace of their heart. They listen to the intuition in their heart. And by acknowledging the fact that your heart has a great capacity for discomfort or suffering or sacrifice or offering, it has the same capacity for love and peace. If you want great love in your life, the other side of the coin is you're going to experience great loss. You can't have one without the other. By knowing and learning how to cope with discomfort is going to expand your capacity to experience bliss, joy, peace, happiness. How do you get used to discomfort? You might be asking, right? You can do things like exercise, right? By strengthening your body, you strengthen your mind, you strengthen your capacity for discomfort. It's not comfortable to exercise if you do it like the way that it's meant to, right? In a healthy way. It's not painful, it's not hurting your body. It's still discomfort though. It doesn't have to be painful to the point that you're injuring yourself, but it has to be painful enough where there's growth. You can also do this by doing a disciplined practice, whether that's with meditation, with prayer, whether that's with yoga, whatever, anything that will give that discomfort. Another way too is doing very primitive ceremonies. Now, with this one, though, I will give a disclaimer that you do have to be healthy mentally and emotionally for you to be able to do these things. Because sometimes when we do primitive ceremonies, they ignite a part of our soul that is not used to the amount of discomfort or pressure or stress that you're being put under. So it can come in as a shock. One of the easier ways to do something primitive is something that has been trending lately, which is ice baths. That is something that is primitive to its nature. You're dealing with cold water, a shock to your body temperature by having ice water that you're being dunked into in seconds, right? That is one of the ways that is the most, I think, approachable It's also not as stressful as other primitive practices that you can do to really be able to learn how to make space for discomfort. There's a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be just this way, but even though with this, I would highly suggest that you do this with someone that's done it before, or at least do it with someone else there present with you, because you don't know if you're going to go into shock or not with an ice bath. As simple as it might sound, if you don't know what your body's going to react or how, because you don't know the amount of capacity that your heart truly has for that discomfort just yet. So all of these different practices are there to help you tune into your body, come back into the body, get out of the mind, because you can't be in your mind when you're in an ice bath. You have to breathe. You have to connect to your body, connect to your heart, calm yourself, right? Be in that space of discomfort until it's not that uncomfortable anymore. And you're like, oh, hold up. My legs are tingly. I actually feel warm in my body, even though the water is ice cold. That's interesting, right? And then that's when you realize, oh, if I would have let my mind take over, I would have freaked myself out. But you having that discipline, you having that control, healthy control of your body, of your reaction, of your breathing techniques, of your nervous system would help. And with the King of Cups, he has that. He can think logically, but he will never, ever override his intuition. Ever. His intuition is gold. It's key to living life. And sometimes there's things that we go through that we can't like explain, and it is what it is. So with this message, I'm up on the day after my birthday. My birthday's on June 4th. I hope that you're able to find a way to maybe healthily, slowly, but surely, right? Bring more discomfort into your life so you can bring that tolerance and that strength in so many areas of your life. And it can be as simple as exercise. It just has to be exercise. It can be walking, it can go into running. The discipline of having to run or walk every day is a resistance enough. You have resistance, you're like, nah, I'd rather sit at home, right? That's building resistance, and you can continue building upon that over time. So all of that just to say that changes are coming. And if you're able to integrate how much you can sit with discomfort and be in a comfortable place with discomfort, the easier and better and more beautiful and enlightening these changes will be for you. So I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your day, morning, evening, whenever this found you. And that you just live your life for you. Just be authentic, be who you are, shine your truth. And whoever's meant to love you and, shares you will. And the more you shine your light, the more the right people will be attracted to it as well. So live your life, be happy, be loving, be graceful, stand your ground when needed, but just live your life for you, because you're the heart that you're living, you're the soul that you're living, you're the mind that you're living, you're the body that you're living. You are your experience. And if you want a better experience, you have to live for you. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast here that was published the day after my birthday. And if you feel like this conversation could benefit someone that you know, please feel free to share this with them. If you're listening to this on Spotify, give us a rating so we can be easier found by other people. And if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you can just, keep up with Vibes del Alma podcast and myself. So thank you so much for listening today. And I hope that you're able to love yourself and just, continue living your life for you. Until next time.